What's up, everybody? It's Nick and Chris back on the post-fight podcast in your lives today on this, what is it, Thursday morning? That's right. Live from Hong Kong, coming to you from South China Morning Post in Times Square. Well, Chris is over in his living room in Saigon, not too far away. But today, we got a lot of stuff to get to, haven't we, Chris? We've got all this big announcements from Chatri. Mr. Chatri went on Ariel, Helwani, the MMA Hour, MMA Fighting's very own Ariel Helwani, and broke some big fight announcements for One Championship's 10th anniversary show in December 5th. They didn't say where it is, I think, but it looks like it's Singapore. So, yeah, we got 2 title fights confirmed. Garry Tonon and Thanh for the featherweight belt. Bibiano Fernandez is finally back. Finally, he's going to defend his bantamweight title against John Lineker. But the big news, yes, is Demetrious Johnson will fight none other than Rodtang in an MMA Muay Thai hybrid fight. Special rules: 1 round Muay Thai, 1 MMA, then another Muay Thai, then another MMA. 4 rounds in all, looks like. It's a bunch of crazy shit gonna go down on that card. But that's the song. I got my soundboard loaded up with some sounds. So, Chris, you're going to hear all my new tricks.
Oh, wow. 100%. I cannot wait. And just absolutely just want to say hello to all the young girls and young boys out there watching us. Nothing better.
Is that a joke? Because the young boys beat Man United?
I don't know, mate. You might be looking into it a little bit too much.
Might be, yeah. Let's not get into that. We're here to talk MMA, not football. Okay, but how are you doing, Chris? Sorry, I spoke over you. I'm trying this new thing where I play the theme song at the beginning for a minute or so, and then we can get a copyright strike every week.
Yeah, I'm absolutely fantastic. It's nice to have a little bit of MMA back this weekend because obviously last weekend we had no One Championship, we had no UFC, we had no Bellator, we had no PFL, so it truly was a fallow weekend. And this weekend we are back with Bellator and UFC this weekend as well as Rising. So it's nice to see it all coming back together, getting time to watch our favorite sport again.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, hopefully we can talk a little bit about the fights this weekend. But yeah, first of all, like I mentioned, I wanted to get into this stuff, this One Championship news, and also maybe talk about that infamous, well, are they infamous anymore? The bloody elbow. It seems like it's annual. Every year they come out with a new one. Because I guess this one has to release its financial records every year, so they kind of wait for that. Yeah, we can talk a little bit about that. It's not forbidden. You look, Chatri addressed it himself. Ariel asked him. Props to Ariel for asking Chatri about that. Yep. Despite what many people say, Ariel is a real journalist. He's got the big scoop here, so hats off to him. Yes, let's get into it, though. Rodtang, oh my goodness, against Demetrious Johnson. So I spoke to Chatri, Chris, a couple of weeks ago, and he said to me, we got something crazy planned for DJ. You're all going to love it. And I put that out on Twitter, and I think it was Aaron Bronstetter from TSN. He retweeted it. Someone with a lot more followers than me, obviously, and it went a little bit viral, slightly in the MMA circles. And everyone was wondering who's DJ's opponent going to be, because Chatri mentioned it's. Think of some crazy Pride-style matchmaking, you know. So people's imaginations were running wild. We had DJ against Fedor, things like that, all this crazy stuff. Are you satisfied with the craziness level of DJ versus Rodtang, Chris?
I am pretty satisfied. I think it's going to be really good fun. You've got 2 amazing, fantastic martial artists. And I think it's really good because you get someone who's really well known in Muay Thai, kickboxing, and One Championship circles. And you put them against the biggest star from the UFC, the biggest Western star that they have. So it does both people really, really good. It grows both people's brands. I want to say to people, I want to say maybe you want to look back at my show last week with Leon, because I did predict it would be something like Road to 1-3 Tokyo, where they had the special rules match. I was predicting it. I do tend to predict these things rather correctly somehow. I don't know, not to toot my own horn, but I think it's fantastic. I think the rule set, the only issue I have is maybe the 3-minute rounds. It's going to be a bit tough if Rodtang has some form of takedown defense. It could make him a bit tough for him to wrestle him and get some sort of submission and really use his wrestling. But apart from that, yeah, I think would have been nice to know a little bit more about the rule set. How is it going to be judged? Is it going to be 10-9 must system? Is it going to judge as a total fight, or is it an exhibition similar to these Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson fights and Logan Paul, where if we don't get a finish, it is just going to be classified as a draw? Because obviously in Muay Thai in one championship they use a 10-9 must system, but then in MMA we score fights as a whole. So be very interesting to see how they will score it, right?
I'm very interested to see how they score it. Definitely. What's interesting to me? Go ahead. Sorry.
I feel if it goes the whole 4 rounds, I feel almost 100% it will be given as a draw regardless.
I'm trying to play one of my sounds. It's not working. Oh, that's because I turned it down. There you go.
You see to your right?
Yes.
Back here.
In the back? What's going on?
You remember that? So I think only Drake and I found that one funny. But yeah, look, I'm interested to see how they make this. Well, yeah, what they make this, how they're going to score it. We don't know right now. I probably think they don't know. They're probably going to figure that one out over the next 2 months. But what is interesting to me, Chris, is if I can again somehow toot my own horn. You know, I love to do that. Yeah. Is I spoke to DJ a few months ago, and he said he wanted a kickboxing fight after his loss to Marias, and then Rodtang called him out and said, "I'll fight you in kickboxing, DJ." And then I interviewed DJ, and he look at this headline: politely declines, as I put it, and he basically admitted, when you're stuck in a Singapore hotel room for 10 days, you start to think all kinds of things. And he admitted he was crazy to consider competing in a one kickboxing bout after that defeat. And yes, all kinds of crazy shit you think about, he said. He basically admitted, God, no, I don't want to fight Rodtang. That guy will destroy me. He says, you see that guy get hit? It'll be like, you did a good job. That was a good sparring match. All right, I'm going to go find a real Muay Thai guy. Bye-bye. When you look at how many fights those guys have, I mean, I saw a gentleman who's fighting this weekend. He has 114 fights, and I'm like, oh, my God, that's totally fucked up. There's so many bouts. When it comes to kickboxing and Muay Thai, I mean, the striking, those guys are just absolutely on a different level. So what changed in between then? When is this article from? Let me look. This is... I'm trying to see. I think it was July 18th of June. So is it just the fact he gets to have MMA in a couple of the 4 rounds? Is that why he thinks so? That levels the playing field?
I think also this kind of like adds to your legendary status in the same way BJ Penn has that legendary status of fighting people like Lyoto Machida in open weight clashes. I think it's not really, even if he does lose, it's not really a loss for him. But to tell you the truth, I think it comes down to one thing, and I think it's types of green paper with dead presidents on them. I think he's probably just getting a boatload of cash. I think adding in the 2 MMA rounds is much better. Not having 5-minute rounds is probably much better as well. And I think probably DJ is just thinking, okay, wait, all I have to do really is survive 3 minutes against Rodtang, which is going to be really, really tough. But then once you get into that second round, I think he's going to be shooting very, very fast.
Yeah, well, we saw Rodtang training for MMA a couple of years ago, I think, or was it last year? So it was something I think that was on his mind to eventually try his hand at. So maybe this is something Rodtang's wanted to do for a while. You never know. But anyway, please remember to like and subscribe, everyone. If you haven't already, click that button.
He is going to be the bigger man, Rodtang, so he probably will have an advantage in that. If you look to him before he was in one, when he was weight cutting in the stadiums and whatnot, I want to say he was a world champion at 130 pounds in the stadiums and Diamonoi and the Channel 9 championships that he won. I think they were all at 130 pounds. So he is going to have a little bit of weight on DJ, but DJ is a little bit older. He might be a little bit bigger now. I think this is an awesome fight. And hopefully we find out that Adriano Marias has got booked for a fight recently. So hopefully he can fight someone, and it brings in the possibility of bringing someone else in to the picture that DJ can fight. Because you know what? I think this is going to be a fun fight. But to tell you the truth, when it comes to Demetrious Johnson, I want to see him doing mixed martial arts. I think that's what he's best at. I think he's one of the best to ever do it, and I want to see him compete at the sport he specialized in.
Well, I think Adriano is booked, or they've nearly booked the fight against Yuya Wakamatsu. That is what I think is in the pipeline. And this is good. It gives them a little more time to figure out what to do with DJ in the flyweight division, doesn't it? I think, because he could have come straight back, taken out, I don't know who's ranked there up there. You got Edward, Danny Kingad is still high, isn't he?
I think Tatsumi Tsuwada is pretty high.
Yeah, it's DJ's beating all these guys though. I think the only one that's not there is Reese McLaren, and I know Reese wants that fight, but yeah, it gives them a little time maybe to rethink things in that division. But let me bring you back into the picture.
I think Reese McLaren. I think Akhmetov as well would be a pretty good fun fight. I want to say he fought in the December series. I don't know. I think that was collision course, but he's been on. I think he's on a 4 or 5 fight winner, Garry Akhmetov. So I think that would also be a good fight for DJ because there's a lot of talent in this flyweight division. So as much as I do like him having this fun fight, it does kind of make me think, well, he would have been signed with 2 years now. He had 3 fights in a really short amount of time. We haven't seen him fight. He had the loss to Marias. Then we're kind of, I feel, wasting time with him with this fight. But,
Hey, it's exciting at least. It gets people talking. It's got a lot of buzz for one championship, I think, in the American side of MMA media. I've seen a lot of retweets from big names, big personalities in MMA media. Everyone's hyped about it. Ariel's my nemesis, Chris, taking my one championship exclusives away from me. No, I'm just kidding. I really love Ariel and his work. And look, this makes sense to break the news through a guy like him. Of course it does. No one has more traction than Ariel. And if one championship wants to really stake a claim in America in 2022, that's the way to do it, isn't it, Chris? There's no bigger way. And a lot of people talking about it now.
Oh, 100%. And this is just a little bit of the rollout for what we are expecting at some point, probably next year, is a huge event in the US with all their fighters. I think the TNT series and probably X as well will probably be in some way a bit more of a rollout to American audiences. And I think this is a great time because you can use 1X to kind of get you familiar with the rule set, kind of get you familiar with the differences. I think a lot of people already got that from the TNT series because I think the Eddie Alvarez incident, both incidents in a way, and the DJ getting knee to the head brought up in a lot of other MMA media that don't cover one championship so much, such as Morning Combat, Submission Radios. Everyone was kind of talking about it. So I think everyone, anyway, the hardcores, the 200 to 300,000 people they need to watch an event for it to really be considered a success, they probably all know the rule set now, or they've read over it, or they've got some familiarity with it. So I think that's fantastic. And they're just getting to know more and more names within the organization too.
Oh, what an idiot. I've forgotten to put the money on for this. Let me just turn on the revenue here. All the sweet dollars we're going to make from this podcast are now going to flow in.
The big come on! The big come on!
We do love the big come on.
I got some fun sounds, so we're going to try them all out throughout the show. Okay, I'm going to read some comments quickly because I've been ignoring everyone. Sorry. You're kind of out of my line of sight. I got this big microphone in the way of the comment field, so didn't see them all. Here we go. Gordon Liu. What's up, Gordon? Saying, I love this fight. I think DJ has a slightly better chance of making it out of round 1 than Rodtang has of making out of round 2. That being said, Rodtang by KO in round 1. Oh, bold. I love the prediction. Chris, I saw you agree with him there. Getting involved in the chat. Like to see it. Jeff thinks this is crazy shit. JD Smith, the guitarist, saying, JD Smith, digi artist, not the guitar. Maybe I got that wrong. I'm excited for the DJ Rodtang fight. Very cool rule set. Cool idea anyway. We'll see how it unfolds. Mary Chang, what's up, Mary? Saying rounds 1 and 3 will be contested under the one Muay Thai rule set, and rounds 2 and 4 under MMA rule set. So it seems like they have agreed the rules. I don't know about the scoring. What's going on? That's what I want to know. Terrence saying, will we ever get a 1v rise in the supercard? No, Terrence. Chatri only, I don't even think they would ever go through that if UFC did want to co-promote, but He says, I only want the UFC if we're going to co-promote. He shot down Bellator, Rising, anything like that. So I don't see it happening. I would love to see it, though. I think it's more realistic.
I think you'd only ever really get that kind of supercard as well if one were to buy Rising or another organization. It's hard to say because Rising's divisions are a little bit all over the place. They haven't really built out all the divisions. They're particularly good lightweight down. We've got some good women's divisions, but then as well, they tend to do light heavyweight and heavyweight and kind of neglect some of those weight classes in between. And while one has tried to build up a little bit more in the middle as of late. But I just don't think we're ever going to see it. I think it is far more realistic. I think, if you do look at one, if they had the money, the biggest way they could ever get a foothold in America will be probably to buy Bellator, would be the best way. But, you've got a lot of really, really good organizations out there just under the level of the UFC. And it is really hard when you are that second tier under the UFC, your one championship, your Bellator, your PFL. Really is hard out there to just differentiate yourself. And, the amount of people who do refer to this sport, not as MMA, as UFC, is still absolutely surprising to me.
Another comment from John KL. What's up, John? Saying one championship should have given that scoop to the local media who have supported them since day zero. Should have given it to Leon Jennings. That's right. Asian Persuasion MMA, our boy Leon. Where is Leon? Hopefully he's watching.
John KL. I will give him a nice a J and an L here. Is this a J? This is an L.
Oh, it's too soon, man. Too soon. Still not over that. Still not over that. Here he is. John KL. Oh, since Tanley and Tonon will be fighting in Singapore, that means Tonon is vaccinated. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah,
because all fighters are going to be vaccinated to go to Singapore, right?
100%. I think Chatri did say last night on Ariel, I want to say he said they're approaching or just at about 80% of all of their signed athletes are vaccinated, which is, the vast majority. It'd be interesting to see who wasn't vaccinated. But it's quite tough to tell. And also you have to remember they are a global organization as well, so it might be quite hard for some of them to get vaccinated in certain areas.
Okay. Gordon here saying, Ariel asked Chatri about Bloody Elbow's expose on one's financial situation. Chatri basically dismissed it as inaccurate. What do you guys think about John S. Nash and his articles about one? Yeah, well, let's do it. Let's get into it. Chris, you know way more about me than financial side of life. You were an accountant, so I often throw these kind of things to you. I read it, and I didn't really understand much of it at all, other than that some slightly shady shit. But you have a better breakdown than me, I'm sure. And but good on Ariel for asking Chatri. And did Chatri actually clarify anything? I haven't actually watched.
It was a little bit more of a rebuke than it was anything. He didn't really go too much into depth with it. Obviously, a lot of this information is actually made public. They are looking at an IPO. There were certain things in there that I hadn't heard about. And, it does show you that one don't announce certain things. Like they didn't really announce the $500 million that they raised. They did make a loss in effect really last year, which was kind of covered up by that. But that is not so strange for a company that is growing. I mean, they are getting venture capital off people like Sequoia Capital. And Temasek, the Singaporean Sovereign Wealth Fund. I think what was quite interesting personally for me was actually that they finally bought out the Thai unit of One Championship, because almost everywhere else in the world, they owned 100% of their Japanese business, 100% of their Singaporean, their Malaysian business, etc., etc. But I believe until recently it was only 49% of the Thai business, which always seemed a little bit odd, and there was always whisperings and rumors about who made up the other 51% of that Thai ownership, and that they weren't particularly the most transparent of people. But I think apart from that, it was nothing totally out of the ordinary for a company that is growing. You have to remember the UFC was a private company, so the Fertittas were putting their own money in. What did they put in? $20 million, $40 million, something like that. But obviously, we don't have the media that we did back then, and probably not as much people giving it oversight and going into the financial details of the sport back then. I think John S. Nash does a fantastic job of covering the financial side of the sport. I think he does anything that anyone should do. And I think, I do find it a little bit rich that you can seek out an IPO as a company and then be that rebukeful of people going through your financial information and writing stories about it. Because obviously, once you IPO and you're a public company, that will be tenfold. You'll have hedge funds, research companies, think tanks all over the world are researching you and publishing material on you anyway. So in that sense, I do find it a little bit odd, but I do have to say Ariel did a fantastic job of asking the hard questions.
Yeah, good to see he didn't shy away. Like you say, Chris, I think if one are going to get more of this, aren't they? Especially if they go public like that. So you've got to deal with it. You've got to. I'm sure Chatri had some answers prepared, but it seemed like he just went after them a bit.
Yeah, he did talk about as well all the huge numbers they do. Some of them that are backed up, but then the problem you do get with some of them is some of the Nielsen stuff that they've tweeted out themselves, and it's like, oh, they are fourth, but then when you actually look into the data, they're only looking at 13 countries. I know, okay, they do have America in there, and they do have I think they had the UK in, but they didn't have huge markets like France or Germany, Australia included, or even India or Japan. So it can all be very, very biased, right? So you do have to be very, very careful.
Yeah, and it's also to what extent can you monetize these countries you are getting all the views in, because like a Myanmar market, ad revenue is probably a lot less than, let's say, well, it is a lot less than the US, right? And even India, ad revenue a lot lower. So can they monetize these big numbers? I don't know. That's for them. I still feel like they need the US, and you can see by how big they're trying to push into the US. I know for a fact that's their number one goal now, is to crack the US, especially next year. So
yeah,
yes, it's good to have all those numbers, but the real numbers that matter are, I think, TV ratings in the US, ticket sales in the US, and a broadcast deal. You know what I mean? That's what they need.
Yeah, I mean, look, going forward over the next 5 to 10 years, when you look at one championship, I mean, still primarily a Southeast Asian organization, in all honesty, that they really have 4 pillars that they really, really need to build on in the future. And one of them is the US. And then you have to say the other two are obviously India and China, where they are trying to make a huge push, doing much more successfully in India. From the feel of what I get. Obviously, it's slightly different, though, because a lot of the social media we do use is not available in China. But obviously, you tweet stuff out, I tweet stuff out. We're in conversations, particularly on the one championship side of the sport. I do see a lot of interaction with Indian fans. We get a lot of questions from Indian fans. Don't really get that from the Chinese, but obviously there is no opaqueness to see that. And then obviously you've probably got, I count it as a 4th pillar. You kind of got Korea, Japan, you've got your Hong Kong, you've kind of got your developed Asia, and maybe Australia you want to include in that, where they probably really want to expand outward from Southeast Asia to also kind of increase their presence in Japan, Korea, and Australia as well, where you're in a similar time zone. But these 3 countries, what you think 3,000, 4,000 tickets in these places is probably a bigger gate revenue than 20,000 in a Thailand or a Philippines or Burma. So, India and China, you really need for the TV money because of their large populations, but you actually kind of need Korea, Japan, Australia, I'll throw in there as well as Singapore, Hong Kong, where you can charge relatively high ticket prices, where people have relatively high incomes.
Okay, well, a couple other questions here. Terrence has a question concerning Leon Edwards. Maybe we'll say that we're just going to get through the next couple of title fights that one announced, then we can go on to some UFC. Just to keep it in organized and sections. What about this, though, quickly from JD, Chris? Worldwide, who's the larger organization, UFC or one? Obviously, in the States, UFC is king.
FC, 100%. I would probably personally, say only Thailand, maybe Malaysia, and maybe Philippines. And maybe Burma. I would probably say that they are the only 4 parts of the world where one championship is probably ahead of UFC, but it's very close in some of those places.
I think definitely Myanmar, yeah, but
I'd probably say Malaysia. They go to Malaysia quite a lot. They do pretty good numbers. Same in Philippines. The UFC doesn't often go there, but I'd actually say, you do look at Singapore and what the UFC charges when they go to Singapore, the speed with which their tickets do sell out, it does seem to be faster than one championship a lot of time. And I'd say Thailand as well, because they do have all these great Thai guys fighting in the Super Series and in Muay Thai and kickboxing.
Yeah, only Burma is one bigger than UFC, says John. Definitely driven a lot, of course, by
John will probably know more
Ongla.
about Malaysia than me, but yeah, you probably only got Thailand, Malaysia, or Philippines you could put in that conversation. Yeah, it is quite tough. Maybe the Philippines. It's quite tough to say.
Yeah, I've been to the Philippines a few times for one. Definitely a lot of interest there, driven by the Team Nakai guys, and I think Denise Sambuanga is getting there, but they're not on the kind of level of an Ongla. You know, not everyone on the streets doesn't know who they are. You know what I mean? The way they in Myanmar, everyone knows who Ongla is.
And
Ongla is like Pacquiao of Myanmar, you know.
Yeah, but it does also show that they are in a slightly tricky situation because, you know, imagine someone like Teo Tang fought out their one championship contract and got bought out by the UFC. Would we see the UFC overnight overtake one championship? Because if Ongla went to the UFC, he won't go. But if he did, we'd see it probably go the other way, right? And, you know, all the UFC really has to do in a lot of markets is
one is not stupid. They signed Ongla to a 10-fight contract 2 years ago, and he's still got 6 fights on that, I believe.
And he's
that was, so he's not going anywhere. One looks after him financially, and I think they, you know, he believes in the organization, and they're going to promote him. It's a mutually beneficial thing, I think. You won't see Ongla going anywhere. Okay. Yeah, Dylan Bowker saying excited to see the bad boy from Vancouver, BC, Canada, Bibiano Fernandez return. Yeah, let's talk quickly about Bibiano, Chris. He is back, finally. It's been 2 years nearly since he beat Kevin Bellingon. Wait, let me get some kind of applause. So this is my reaction to the fact we haven't seen Bibiano for 2 years. I'm mad at one championship.
You bombed, and you bombed. This is completely unacceptable.
It's unacceptable, one, that we haven't seen Bibiano for 2 years, but he's back finally. And yes, I sort of stirred this up a couple months ago. Bibiano said they haven't even answered my calls. They're ignoring me. I spoke to Chatri a couple of weeks ago, and he said, well, Bibiano is asking for too much money, basically. He's not bringing in big viewership numbers. It's hard to pay those people top dollars. Chatri spoke to Bibiano last week, I know, on the phone at the behest of Matt Hume, obviously now vice president in one, head coach at AMC Pancration. And they got it done. Whatever, I don't know if Bibi accepted a lower number. I don't know if Chatri went higher, but we finally are going to see Bibi against John Lineker, who has been knocking out people left, right, center since coming to one. 3 straight wins. This is the fight. There was no other fight to make, was there, Chris, in this division? It's a barn burner on paper. How do you see it going, though? Because Lineker has looked fantastic.
Oh, John Lineker looks absolutely fantastic. Even before he came to one, he was fantastic in the UFC. I mean, you really have to go back a pretty long time. His only really lost as recently as TJ Dillashaw and Corey Sandhagen, who are right at the top of the division in the UFC. He had a lot of trouble with weight cutting, which one championship is almost a perfect fit for him. Seems really odd, right? Because you do forget that John Lineker's pretty much in his prime at age 31. It is mad to think that Bibiano's 10 years older than him. I think Bibiano was fighting Uriah Faber back in 2003, which I think back then John Lineker would have been about 12 years old. So to show you how long Bibiano's been around, and even before that, what he was accomplishing in the world of jiu-jitsu, I think this is a great opportunity for one. I think this is really, if there's a time to launch a Portuguese Twitter, if there's a time to launch a Portuguese YouTube, similar to how they really upped the Japanese One Championship Twitter as we approached a new era and century. They really went out on that front, because I think this got to be the biggest fight in Brazilian MMA history within One Championship banner. Definitely. For me in this one, I think just everything points towards John Lineker. I think he's been more active. I think he's got really, really good wins against Gafurov, Bellingham, and Troy Worthen. I think they've really cemented his place there. He's definitely the number one contender. And I think Bibiano having 26 months out, I think it's not really going to play into his hands, particularly at 41. There's not many people who can continue such a fantastic run in their 40s. And there's not many who take such long breaks, particularly at a low weight class like this.
Okay. Bibiano, yeah, like you said, it's been a while. What do you think about this financial issue? Does he deserve big money? He's been there since, I believe, one's fifth ever event in 2012, I want to say. He's been one of the OGs. He turned down the UFC for one. You know, he rebuffed genuine interest from the UFC when he left Dream to come to one. Does he probably feels? I know he feels this way. He told me. He says, I feel I deserve some big money, some loyalty. I've shown so much loyalty to one, but one don't see it that way. Apparently, from what Chatri told me, he said, if you're not driving up the numbers, we're not going to pay you. Where do you fall on this line, Chris?
Yeah, it is really tough because he's done amazing things. He's done amazing things in Dream. He's been with them since their fifth fight, and he's done fantastic things. I think he's won Championship's best ever fighter, like all-time pound for pound. He's number one on the list for me. Pretty easily. He's got the record for the most title defenses. He's got the record for the most consecutive title defenses. He's took on all challenges, all comers. And, you do look at everything he's achieved in this sport. Just absolutely fantastic. But I think they must have offered him a little bit more money. Either that or they've offered him an extension because being his age, he probably wants some security going forwards. But it is really, really tough to say because, we do speak to people when we have friends who are MMA fans, but not huge on one championship. And when you speak to them about one championship, they know the UFC guys or they know the Leas, they know Adriano Moraes. Bibiano kind of as well due to inactivity. Hasn't had that breakout moment that Adriano Moraes had with his win over DJ. That, even the people like Okra Yoon, you can say have had by getting wins off of Eddie Alvarez or Timothy Nasty. You can probably more people know them. I think I looked at Bibiano's Instagram. He has 20,000 followers. I think John Lineker has about 120,000 followers. So it's absolutely tiny in comparison. It is just a tough place, right? Because, really this is prize fighting, and for being champion and keep winning, you should get paid. But we do forget that half of the fight game is a popularity contest.
Well, I still think they should look after him.
Oh, 100%.
Given everything he did. And maybe they did do that. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But whatever happened, we're going to see this fight finally. We needed to see this a while ago. So looking forward to that. December 5th, 1X, the 10th anniversary show. Very fitting. BB will be defending his belt on that show. And let's get a couple of comments before we do. Tan and Garry. First of all, Tristan says Lineker will starch Bibiano now and 2 years ago when they should have fought. That's the way Ninja says it. Is it happening? DJ versus Rodtang? Yes, it is happening. It is definitely happening. John KL, Bibi especially deserves the big money for being made to sit out for 2+ years at his age. That's an eternity. Yes. But I think the reason he's had to sit out for 2 years is because he wanted the big money, and they said no. Yeah. That's what I deducted. Lethway Ninja. One, never be as good as UFC, lack of showmanship. Tristan, back to Tristan, says, Bibiano Fernandez is nowhere near the top bantamweights in the world. I don't know,
I think that's pretty rough. I think his wins over Martin win, fantastic fight, split decision, but fantastic. His wins over Kellen Bellingham, which I thought he won all 4 of them, in total honesty. I thought the split decision was a little bit rough. You can even go back to his one championship debut against Okazaki. He was fantastic. If you really want to go back in time, the Joe Warren and Imanari fights back in Dream back in the day are fantastic. I think he's dominated on this side of the world when Dream was the best one, following the demands of Pride, and then he's dominated in one championship. He hasn't ever been afraid to fight anyone. They've signed champions from Shuto, from Pancrase to come over. They've signed guys from the Philippines. They've signed top talent to fight him, and he's gone through everyone. I think it's really, really tough to say he's nowhere near the top bantamweights in the world. And plus, we do have to make bantamweight is probably one of the best divisions in the world right now. And we only have to see that with Horiguchi going over to Bellator, right? And all the hype that's created.
Yeah, I think 10 years ago, Bibi would be definitely there. He could probably beat anyone at that time. I don't like now. Yeah, do I see him beating a Peter Yan? I'm not sure.
John KL wants us to put on our Brazilian accents and give him the Bibiano Finance.
Well, actually, yes, I'm going to speak to Bibiano tonight, 9 p.m. Hong Kong time. So probably drop that on the world tomorrow morning, Hong Kong time again. So I'm going to get all of Bibiano's reaction to this fight being announced. I'm going to try and get into what happened there with negotiations, why suddenly he accepted the fight. Did he get more money? I'll try and ask. It'll all be on SCMP MMA tomorrow, probably. I might be a little bit tired tonight. Going to play football, and I'm going to rush home from football after scoring a hat trick to speak to Bibiano. It's because I love all of you guys, and I want to bring you this news.
I would just say, I was just going to say to Tristan, yeah, it's really, really tough to say, but we can't say he's dropped that far off because we haven't really seen that drop off, right? I think it's a bit harsh to say he's ranked nowhere near the top when we haven't really seen him drop down a level. That's the problem. There's no evidence to say he isn't one of the best in the world right now. I haven't seen any evidence of the contrary, but we might see that in the John Lineker fight. But it's tough to say until we see him fight, right?
Trevin Jones.
Oh,
I don't know. I think Bibi, put some respect on his name, Tristan.
Yeah.
He is the Flash. Genuinely, a few years ago, this guy was considered, I mean, just because he hasn't fought in 2 years, maybe not anymore, but if you did a pound for pound list, he's probably still in my top 3 in one.
Yeah,
Chris,
probably.
I mean, who would you put up there
to
open
3
that debate again?
On the men's side right now would probably be Adriano, Bibiano, and then it's really, really tough between Christian Lee and RDR. It's really tough between those two, but I probably have to give it to RDR just because of what he's doing, being undefeated, and I just think what he's done, he's really gone against the odds lately, but really tough.
All right. Maybe not Trevin Jones, says Tristan. I just like Trevin. Well, I like Trevin as well, but let's see what Trevin could do. A lot of upside to Trevin. Anyway, 5-star Jones. Mary Chang did ask something. Sorry. When is Bellingham going to fight again? I don't know, Mary, because who do you fight if you're Kevin Bellingham? It's kind of, he's in that really tough spot that some people like Max Holloway, I guess, finds himself in when you've lost to the champion twice or 3 times. I think he's lost twice, hasn't he, to Bibi? There was one.
Oh, 3 times. Yeah, it was
he beat him once on split, but he lost to, and he's lost to Lineker.
Yeah.
And where else does Bellingham go? He needs to kind of sit out and wait a little bit. And
well, he lost 3 out of 4 fights to Bibiano, and it's like I just can't see you when it's 3-1 and you run it back a 5th time and then it becomes 4-1. It's probably doing more damage to your brand than any actual help.
Yeah. So I don't know. They need to think about that. And I'm not sure. Yeah, I really don't know about Kevin.
I think our boy who used to train here in Hong Kong would be fantastic for Kevin Bellingham. I would like to see him fight Fabricio Andrade.
That would be good. That'd be good.
I think that's it. I actually, as well, I think Andrade as well. I think he's a little bit of a star. He's fought with the Mohawk. He has his head usually dyed the color of the Brazilian flag, right? He goes for like the blue and green combo. I think he's a fantastic fighter, and I think as well he'd be great to have on this card because it's like if you're gonna have 2 out of your 3 most famous Brazilians on a card, I do kind of feel like you should throw a few Brazilians on the card. Like I do always say it, when you've got a few of the Dutch guys on a one championship card, you should try and throw as many of them on as possible and try and build your brand in that country.
Yeah, and look, I don't think they're going to want to beat Bellingham. They probably want him to win his next fight. He's coming off a couple of losses there, or 3 losses, yeah. So Andrade may be a tough one for him, and who knows? Who knows?
Shoko Sato, those guys are still there.
We'll see. We'll see. I do not have any official information though on Bellingham, but he didn't retire. He's still in the game. Okay, and quickly, John had a question. Where was it? About why is Ham getting so much hate? It was a close fight, but she doesn't control the judges. Yeah, we touched on it briefly the other day, but she's had to block or delete comments on her Instagram, whatever it's called, turn them off, because so many Filipino fans just giving her abuse. It's not her fault, guys, that she got the win. 2 judges saw it for her, and then the review committee, whatever they're called, upheld it. So look, don't blame Ham because she beat Denise.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like sometimes this is why one championship tries to be very, very neutral, because I do think sometimes it seems to happen a little bit more with one championship where the nationality thing is a big thing, and you get whole countries who are just fans of fighters from that countries, and it seems to happen a lot more than it does in the UFC, where if you beat an Indian fighter or a Filipino fighter, you get a lot of fans from Philippines, country of 120 million people, and India, country of over 1 billion people. You tend to get a lot of hate from those people, right? And just seems to be selective with some countries, and yeah, just seems to happen. But Ham, I think she's done well. I do think people should probably be getting on the judges a little bit more, but I don't really even have a problem with the judges. I think if people want to take their frustrations out, take it out on Chatri or One Championship, because they have all the money, right? Let's not take it out on the athletes.
Yeah, I can definitely see from all the comments we've had on our videos, yes, a lot of people are not happy in the Philippines about this. So, guys, I'm sorry. Yeah, just it's one of those things in MMA. But we got other stuff to talk about. We poured all over the Denise decision last week. We're here to talk a little bit now about Garry Tonon and Thanh Le featherweight title rematch. Sorry, featherweight title match. I said rematch. I mean, we could have already had 2 or 3 fights between these guys. It's been so long since that fight's been in the works, but it's finally here. Fingers crossed, no more injuries. I know that Thanh had some issues with his hand. Garry had an injury. It's just been, they've tried to make it so many times, and one or the other has had a problem. So finally we're here, December 5th, 1X. What do you think, Chris? Because interesting, Thanh Le, he trains with Ryan Hall.
Yep.
You probably couldn't have a better training partner to try and mimic what Garry Tonon's strengths are.
Oh, 100%. Ryan Hall, probably one of the best people out there to go and train with. But all over the world nowadays, you've got absolutely fantastic jiu-jitsu guys all over the world. Professors, as they call them. You can pretty much go to any major city and find yourself a really, really top-level black belt. I mean, even in the UK, no one can really, who's professional, can have bad jiu-jitsu, because you just get yourself down to London, shoot fighters, and you got yourself Hodger Gracie right there. So, there's not a huge problem anywhere in the world. But, I think this is a bomb burner of a fight. I think as well, having 2 American fighters fighting each other is absolutely fantastic. I liked it. You guys should definitely check it out. Like and subscribe to this channel, because Nick did an awesome, was it called the head-to-head or face-off? When you did it with Thanh Le and Garry Tonon?
Face-off. Yeah, it was like a marriage ceremony.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic, because it was, there was a lot of trash talk, very respectful trash talk, but I felt like they kind of kept the one championship line. I think they're really, really looking forward to challenging each other, and it is a little bit of that classic, what we've been seeing since day one in the UFC of a top quality striker in Thanh Le versus the grappler, really, in Garry Tonon. So I think it's going to be a fantastic fight. It's really tough to judge with Garry, because he's pretty much smoked absolutely everyone.
Yeah. Well, look, looking forward to this. And we've also got I would say a title eliminator on the next card, Revolution, between former champion Martin Nguyen and the fighting god Kim Jae-un. So we're already going to, whoever wins the title fight is going to know who their next challenger is, which makes it interesting, doesn't it, as well? So
100%.
yeah, I can't see how that one's going to go. I mean, Tanley got a pretty good blueprint of how to fight Garry from Matsushima, right?
Yeah.
Because Gary's finished every other fight out of his 6 fights. Matsushima managed to hold him off. Still was a unanimous decision for Garry. But yeah, Tanley's going to know what he has to do. Is it going to be enough, though? Because Tanley, his style is to sort of go around the outside of that circle, pick him off from range. Is Gary's striking good enough to chase Tanley down the way Martin Nguyen was? Is we can have a clash of styles here, Chris?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we did see some improvements to his striking, particularly who he fought? Was it a new era he fought on, or Century against Engelen? We saw him get a TKO there using his hands and feet. He has looked more and more confident on his feet, but Matsushima was a really good blueprint. But I just think people forget how good Tanley's striking is, everything he did as well, fighting at a really, really high level in LFA, then just coming over here to one championship, smoking everyone he's fought. And the win against Martin, I thought was a masterclass. And actually, I think sometimes when I went back and I've rewatched that fight over and over again, you can see there is a level above in Tanley's striking to Martin. And that will probably be even more pronounced against Garry. But, Garry, you just watch some of his fights and he can just do an eye roll and put you in a toe hold or a leg look or a heel hook. And, if he just get you onto the ground, he's so dangerous down there. So it's really tough to say. First possibility in Garry's career to go 5 rounds as well. So it'll be interesting to see there. It's so hard to judge going forward. If I had to choose something out, probably a Garry Tonon submission, but I could see it going anyway.
Yeah, can't wait for that one. Good question here from John. Where's Garry training out of now since the whole Danaher team at Puerto Rico is no mas now? I don't know. I guess he's gone back to New Jersey, Chris. Have you got any idea?
Would assume he probably has. Or could be back in New York, right in Manhattan at Renzo Gracie. Isn't he at in New York?
Let's have a little look on his Instagram. That usually gives you a good idea.
But if he's back training Renzo Gracie, he's got great people to train with there. There's loads of good gyms in New York, great MMA gyms too. I feel with Garry as well, just the way that jiu-jitsu is and the everyday grind, I feel like he's always training anyway. He said he loves to strike, he loves to train strike, and he said in his interview with you. So yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be a fantastic fight. I see them both coming in absolutely prepared.
He's spoken about it. He said, this is my first shot at a championship belt in MMA. Will I sink or swim? Tune in. In particular, Garry's style. I can't see any location on his posts, so I don't know where he is. I don't know. Well, I'll try and ask Garry next time I speak to him. I'm sure I'll speak to him soon to start hyping up this fight, but I imagine it's New Jersey anyways. Couple other questions here, but we can then move on to UFC. Chris, what about this from Tristan? I like Okra Yoon. Do you think he has a fair chance to beat Christian Lee?
Yeah, I like Okra Yoon, but you know what? As we've seen Christian Lee develop and evolve as a fighter, is every fight he's got better and better and better ever since moving up to lightweight. I can't bet against the guy because every time I have, he's proven me absolutely wrong, and I hold my hands up there. And even his wins are getting more and more impressive, in my opinion.
Okay, and from John again, how will Tanley's kicks be affected by the threat of getting caught in a takedown or a trip by Garry Tonon?
That is quite the possibility. you know what, Thanh has fantastic takedown defense, though. You know, when you do watch it, and you know his one loss he has besides his debut fight, all of his losses, his one loss was a TKO punches. But you look, he lost his first match by submission. Obviously, since then, he's had a much better ground game. He's got better. His takedown defense has been absolutely fantastic. Whoever he's fought, be it in LFA or over here, I thought Takahashi really tried to get him down. Katetsu Boku tried to get him down. Same with Saudalayev, and none of them could really do it. Obviously, Garry Tonon is much better on the floor. Is he a better wrestler than Yusuf Saudalayev? That's pretty tough to say, but once he is on the floor, he is good. I think that's really what it's going to come down to, right? It's going to be a battle between takedown defense and the takedown, which Garry is pretty good at, but he isn't really a wrestler. He's a jiu-jitsu practitioner, so it's more about what he can do when they are on the ground.
Okay, well, that about does it for our one championship stuff. So I'll go back to, I think Terrence had a question. We can kick off. So we're going to do a little bit of UFC news now and look ahead to the weekend quickly. What did Terrence ask? I can't remember. Speaking of Leon Edwards, thoughts on Edwards saying he is waiting on a title shot. Just a few months ago, he was saying Georgia was scared to fight. Chris.
Was that predating the Nate Diaz fight?
Oh, God, I don't even know.
I feel like that must have been predating the Nate Diaz fight, but I think with the title fight coming up this weekend, if I was Leon Edwards, I think he's in the UK, but if I was him, I'd be flying over to America because I'd be sat ringside, I'd be at the fight, and I'd really make it known straight after that fight that you're ready to go and that you want the belt, and I'd be there at the side of the cage, maybe with a bit of bling or in a really bright orange suit to get the attention of the cameras. And whoever wins, if it's Kobe or Usman, you need to be there calling them out, throwing your beer at them, trying to get absolutely as much attention as possible. And I would say to most fighters, don't copy anything out of Conor McGregor's playbook, but if there is a time to do a Conor McGregor and get all eyes on you, it's probably that night, right?
That's true.
Because I think for him, the Masvidal fight is a little bit like Conor and Nate Diaz. It's kind of like a Money in the Bank fight. Because I feel like Leon, if he fights Usman or Covington for the belt, if he loses, it's like a tough road back because he's not the most popular guy, but his record has gone there. It's how we want it to be. I do feel like that Jorge Masvidal fight would be, George Masvidal, sorry, that would be the fight that you really can call out and you can kind of turn it into, you know, he's the BMF. We had a fight in the street, maybe get the BMF belt brought back or call him out for or something like this. And I think it's a fantastic fight, but I think it'd be a great fight. But yeah.
Okay, it. Tristan asks, do you guys have a prediction for Smith versus Spann? Well, why don't I get out the old Fanatics browser and we can look at this card quickly. I see Chris has made all of his picks. I haven't made my picks yet, so I'm going to do it now. I'm going to get Chris to tell me who I should pick for.
100%.
Yeah, all right, let's go. Smith versus Spann.
Well, I think this is really, really tough. I think John and Drake probably going with the smarter decision. I think Anthony Smith consistently gets written off a little bit too much. I totally understand why he's the favourite, but I just fancy Ryan Spann to finally take that step up we've expected of him because Anthony Smith is much better than a gatekeeper. It's almost no one in the UFC. I guess Glover's kind of done the same thing where he's kind of got better with age. He's got a huge record. He's got a lot of experience. Legitimately, I think one of the best fighters out there. I think he's a great talker as well. I think he'd make a great coach. And I think he always talks very candidly about everything that does happen in his career. I just fancy a little bit of new blood. I went for Ryan Spann. I do think Smith is rightly the favourite. So I this was a bit of a calculated pick, and I went for Spann being the underdog.
Okay, interesting. I will make my picks. I'm gonna go for Mr. Smith, Lionheart. I like a bit of Anthony Smith. I'm gonna back him here. I think Drake Riggs and JHK have gone for him too. So I feel confident in safety in numbers, Chris. That's 100%. What I like to say. So rest of this card, let me scroll down a little bit. My app's being a little bit slow, so I'll get you to do the next one while I try and make my pick here. Cutelaba against Devin Clark, co-main. Chris, I see you've gone for Cutelaba.
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely love the Moldovan fighter. I think he's always in fun fights. He's in a little bit of an odd place right now because he had those 2 back-to-back losses, but they really shouldn't have been 2 fights with Ankalaev. Then he had the draw with Dustin Jacoby, which I actually scored for Cutelaba. I had 29-28. It was a draw split. It went both ways. I like Cutelaba. I love his fighting style. And he's just been one of those guys, he's gone back and forward. But when you do break down his record and you look, his recent losses have been against Ankalaev twice, Glover Teixeira, Jared Cannonier, and these are all guys who are pretty much right at the top. And then he's beaten really good opponents like Antigolov and particularly Khalil Roundtree, who is a bit of an up-and-down fighter, but I think that was a fantastic win. Devin Clark is coming with a lot of heat, a lot of hype. I don't think it's for anyone of Cutelaba's standing in the sport. I fancy Cutelaba to just edge it.
Okay, and keep going down the card. Mendy Boom against Ariana Lipski. Chris has gone for Lipski. Again, Drake and JHK are going the other way. Why should we go for Lipski, Chris?
I was honestly in this fight, I was just going for more experience, where we see more experience at the top. Tristan does bring it up that German fighters, as of late, have not been doing absolutely particularly well. So it's really, really tough to say. I do like what I have seen from Brom so far, but just a little bit of an odd sign, and it does kind of make me think, was she signed over just to get a few more Germans on the card, or because I think she went out in her last fight and she won a decision out in Bellator, got released from Bellator after that win, and is now with the UFC, which seems a bit odd, and fighting third on a main card. So what whirlwind it must be for her. I've watched some of her fights. She's done okay. She's fought in France. She's fought in Germany, but this is one of them where I just fancy the person who's had the most experience at this high level, and that's obviously Lipski in this case.
Okay. Which other fights then? Let's just kind of cherry pick what else we should look out for here, and you can tell us which picks. What do you really want to see on this card? We could do Rongju, right?
Yeah, definitely, man. I think this is gonna be. So just let me get it up on mine, and we have Rongju versus Brandon Jenkins. Obviously, one of the few Chinese fighters at the moment coming off his loss back on the Usman Masvidal card, the card that had so many Chinese fighters on. Obviously, this is really, really tough. Once again, you do look at his record and he's 17-4, and it might make you think that he's super experienced, but then you look at that age of 21, shows you how young he is. Sometimes it does make me think that he might be a little bit too young for the UFC. It does also make you realize that, maybe being Chinese, he doesn't get this talked about as much, because people bring this up with, they brought it up with Max Ropskov in the past. They brought it up with Chase Hooper as well, who's took a lot of damage. But to me, this does seem to be a little bit of a set me up for Jurong to kind of bounce back with a win. Chinese fighters this year have not been doing well at all, so definitely. But I think Jurong might just be able to get it done and hopefully win. Yeah, hopefully Brandon Jenkins. I think he fought in PFL earlier this year because he was in LFA for years, but I think he was maybe an alternate in PFL. I can't remember.
All right. What else? Any other fights you just want to point out quickly?
We've got some really, really fun fighters on the card. I mean, if you go to the start of the cards, we've got Hannah Goldie making a return. I've got Hannah Goldie to come back and change up. She has been fairly inactive as of late, coming off 2 losses after signing after the Contender Series. It's nice to see her back in the ring, and I fancy her to do a little bit of a surprise here. I think at plus 105, she's a good bet, so I fancy her to maybe just cause a little bit of a shock.
Okay.
I think we need to also look at the Mongolian Knight.
Alateng, Haley.
100%. Former road fighter. I think right now he's 2-1 in the UFC. Lost his previous fight. I can't remember when it was. I think on the home and Aldana card. I'm going to back Alateng to win on this. I think he's going to get the win for China. Then we're going to see China pull off 2 wins this weekend. I think it's going to be a good, fun fight, but I really fancy Alateng to take this one.
Okay.
We also have the return of Impa Kangasai, which should be a good fight.
Kasanga, no, right?
Kasangana, yes, sorry. Who
I
was?
I love the some of the Chris names.
Yeah,
What's my favorite one of yours?
Contender Series fighter. Was making a bit of a splash. Was undefeated until getting devastatingly knocked out by, was it Joaquin Buckley?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, with the memed and talked about KO over last year. And everything I've seen, actually, Kasanganai has been the better fighter. He has the much more rounded skill set. Thought he was winning that fight until he did get caught by Buckley. And I think we're going to see Kasanganai bounce back and keep going forward.
Okay, yeah. Impa beat our guy Sasha Palatnikov.
Yeah.
Boo. No. Fair play to Impa. He was very good that fight. Yeah. So he's. What do you think of him coming down a weight class as well? Do you think he can stay here?
100%. I think if you look at his fights against Buckley, he was the much smaller guy.
Okay. And any others you want to point out quickly?
Speaking of Buckley, we've got Buckley on the card. That should be quite a fun fight. I expect the knockout, and the other one, I think one more up.
Yeah,
we've got Buckley there. Everyone's gone for Buckley. I think this is a little bit kind of a comeback fight for him after his previous loss. But yeah, this should be a pretty fun fight. I think the Montel Jackson versus JP Byers fight should also be fun. Byers is a pretty fun fighter. He always seems to be in wars, so is Montel. And I think it's quite an interesting fight because we've just got such a big difference in the odds. Because, I mean, you look at JP Byers, I think he's plus 475. So it is really tough because I do think Montel Jackson's the better fighter, but this is part of the fun of the game, right? Of Fanatics is, JP Byers is paying out a huge amount in relative difference there, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. Well, any other fights you want to highlight, Chris? Or I got about 10 minutes before I got to get
really
out
a fight on the UFC that I want to bring up, but there's one fight I do want to bring up on. Well, 2 fights I want to bring up. I'll quickly mention Bellator 266 this weekend in the SAP Center in San Jose. We do have the return of Neiman Gracie. We have Georgie Kukarian. Is that how you pronounce it? I might be wrong there. Nick,
I don't know.
if you know. Well, we have Maker's return, who is 31-11, an absolutely fantastic fighter. But I think the one that everyone wants to talk about is the debut, the main event itself, the Bellator debut of Yoel Romero. I think that's what everyone wants to talk about. Yoel was also on Ariel Helwani last night. His first real interview, actually, because he did a load of press before he made his debut for Bellator. He was giving these huge interviews. He was, is it fair to say he was the biggest star when this light heavyweight Grand Prix began? Is that fair to say? He was the marquee signing more than Rumble, in my opinion, just because of what he'd done. And I think this is really tough. And as you can tell with John and Drake, that they've both backed Phil Davis. I totally have to agree there. I think this is a really tough out for Yoel Romero. Phil Davis is a very effective fighter. When I say effective, read boring. He doesn't have the most exciting fights. And I think going against someone like Yoel, who has a bit of an issue with creating boring fights. I mean, his last real bomb burners of a fight were the Whittaker fights, the Adesanya fight, in all honesty. Probably, is that the worst ever title fight we've ever seen? It's the worst of the last 5 years, right? With 2 guys who really didn't want to throw. I don't even actually think this is being billed as an alternate, which I would have liked it be billed as, but it is really tough, and it is tough for Yoel because this is a guy you do have to remember. His last win was in February 2018 against Luke Rockhold. You know, this is a guy who went out there and lost to Whittaker again, lost to Costa, and then lost to Adesanya. Hasn't fought in a year and a half. His last win was over 3 years ago. And he is 44. What's it? 44 years old. He looks fantastic for 44. I think this is a really tough fight for him. I fancy Phil Davis to win, and I think if you're on the app and I think if you want to make a little bit of money, climb that leaderboard, and maybe we're in mid-September now. I think Phil Davis by decision is a fantastic little bet on the app.
Yep, go download Fanatics. You can see the link right there in the yellow ticker. It's also in the description. Go join our SCMP group and compete against us for this weekend's events. We previewed Rising as well on Tuesday, me and Drake. So if you want to get the lowdown on the Rising card, go check that out on our channel. Otherwise, a couple of other little bits of news maybe we should just quickly bring up, Chris, from this morning in UFC world. Joseph Benavidez has retired. I just saw that. And, linked to that as well, Figueiredo and Moreno trilogy has been announced for December pay-per-view. So, quick reactions from you. Let's just try that trilogy fight then first. Looks like Pantoja wasn't going to be ready. That's why they've gone with this.
Yeah, I would like to see Moreno fight someone else. I think there's probably people more deserved. I think the second fight was pretty conclusive. I don't know if we needed the trilogy right now. I'd like to see them both fight someone in between. But if we're going to have a street trilogy, let's have a street trilogy. A trilogy over 1 year is not too bad. It's not as bad as the DC Stipe trilogy, which I think that went over 2 years, right? Between start and end. I might be wrong. But that did have the Derek Lewis fight in between for DC. So a little bit more. DC was fairly active. Stipe wasn't, but I think it's a fantastic fight. Both fights were totally enjoyable. The first fight was fantastic. I wasn't really a huge Moreno fan before it, and I absolutely love him. He's my favorite nerd in MMA.
And Joey B hanging them up. I think right time, is it, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's totally the right time. This is a guy who's been in some absolute wars, and you know what? For me, it's either him or John Fitch in particular. When I have to say who are the best fighters in the UFC to never win titles, it's got to be, for me, Joey B. And he's right up there with someone like a John Finch who went on his fantastic run where he went, I think, 15-1-1 and had a draw against BJ Penn, all-time great, and a loss to GSP, all-time great, and never got the rematch. I think Joey B has to be up there. 4 title fights. Lost to Figgy, lost to DJ. I want to say I had a loss to Dominic Cruz as well for the title, but I might be wrong there. But fantastic. I would have liked to see him because there is a few people around this weight class where you could be having really cool legends fights. You know, the likes of Dominic Cruz, the likes of Frankie Edgar, the likes of my mind goes blank, but there's a lot of older guys around there. Uriah Faber, there was all these guys he could have had these fun matchups with, but probably the right time to hang it up if his heart's not there anymore. I mean, you do look him at the last 2 title opportunities he's had, he's left everything in the cage. You know, you can type in Joey Benavidez on Google Images and you will see pictures of a man who has gone through war after war after war. So I think over here we will applaud you, and definitely, if not the best fighter to never win the belt, definitely one of the top 2 or top 3 to never win it. And, to be down there at flyweight and still competing really, really high at age 37, to show you a fantastic fighter.
100%, as Chris says.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about does it then for today, guys. We'll try and do something on Sunday for this UFC card, a recap. I will reach out to the crew, see if anyone wants to do it. Plans may change, though. You know, Sunday, a lot of people like to enjoy their Sunday. I'll reach out to Chris, see what he's thinking.
100%.
But I'm going to play my outro theme now, which I hooked up on the Yeah. So that's the outro, guys. Yeah, a couple of comments there quickly. Tanley will be the man to give Garry Tonon his first L, says Lim. Tristan is hoping for Masvidal Edwards. Yeah. DJ versus Rodtang Aishin. It is on. It is on. Yeah, just check the beginning of the podcast because we went through it a lot.
Yeah,
But,
see, I just want to. Is it a sure win for Rodtang? It's really hard to see because that first round should be a sure win for Rodtang, but DJ can get out of it. So it's going to be kind of like a game of cat and mouse.
Look, yeah, we'll debate it again, I'm sure. But this is the outro, so I've got to get out of here. The studio is booked for 12, so I'm gonna love you and leave you guys. Thank you, Chris, for jumping on again, and pleasure to see you. Thank you, everyone else, for watching, liking, subscribing, commenting. We really appreciate you. We will be back, I'm sure, in some form on Sunday, maybe for the UFC. Thank you so much.